Welcome. Today we are going to talk about the weird, wild, and bizarre. Here you will enter the world of madness, tales to astonish, a world of amazing fantasy, a journey into mystery. We are about to talk about the strange tale of the substance of style of WandaVision. Hiya folks, welcome to the Style and Substance of WandaVision. Boy howdy do I have so much to say about this show. Today we're going to focus on the beginning, the style within the show, and talk about why it's important to the bigger narrative. So, sit back, relax, and watch the Style of Substance of WandaVision. The first trailer ever to premiere, you notice it's opening like a classic 1950s TV show, and you see that it starts to change from different genres of shows. And throughout the series, you time skip through different eras of TV. Also, I need to let you know, this is going to be spoiler heavy to talk about some of the style within the show. So, if you haven't seen it, bye! And also, golly gee, how could you not? Do you live under a rock? Why don't you just leech Disney Plus like I do? So, why did Marvel choose to do this? Well, it's all thanks to Kevin Feige, aka God. And he had this to say about why he chose the TV aesthetic. He says this in the Empire magazine interview. I love TV. I watched far too much. The Dick Van Dyke Show and I Love Lucy and Bewitched and everything. And you can really tell this love for the primetime television of the 1950s. In this part, I'm going to break down each of these eras they use separately because I believe they all have merits to talk about. So let's start with what television was in the 50s. The first two episodes when we're introduced to them do have that 50s aesthetic, but it doesn't feel like a homage to 1950s or 60s television. It actually feels like a legit show from the 1950s and 60s. So obviously I need to explain. Every time we see homages to things like I Love Lucy or The Honeymooners, they're played off for what I would call a meta laugh. In modern TV shows, when they reference shows from the 50s, it's always used as a parody like, oh man, look how goofy the black and white is. Oh golly gee, didn't they dress swell and funny? But here in WandaVision, the meta-narrative has them actually in a 50s TV show. Everything from the lighting to the set. The most subtle thing is when Wanda is using her magic to keep the plates floating, it isn't CGI. They're actually using string. You can tell because it isn't perfectly straight and it wobbles a bit. As well as having an obnoxious laugh track, the creators of the show have stated that they got some tips from the king of TV during that era himself, Dick Van Dyke, and you can really tell. And I know the Dick Van Dyke show is important to this in multiple ways. I think the one show it really pays tribute to without even really trying is Bewitched. I mean, even episode's 2 intro being a classic homage to the show. But also the fact magic is involved. In Bewitched, the main character Sam has to hide her witch-like abilities from all of her neighbors, and uses her magic to solve, and I put those in air quotes, the problem of that episode. In WandaVision, Wanda is doing the same thing, and I think it's very charming to see the wacky hijinks her magic gets her into in at least the first 3 episodes. Like in a typical Bewitched episode, Sam uses her magic to solve her problem, but then it goes awry and she has to try to undo the magic and also try to solve the initial problem. The first 2 episodes play on that idea hard. So in the first episode, Wanda finds out that it isn't Vision and her's anniversary, but instead the heart on the calendar was the reminder that Vision's boss and his wife were going to have dinner with them. The magical hijinks happen when Wanda tries to rely on her magic to make a dinner and it backfires on her, in a comical way. And in the second episode, Wanda uses her magic to hide Vision's mess-ups because he's kinda drunk and fools the audience to believe that they aren't using magic, but maybe it's just illusions of magic. These episodes feel so aggressively charming and fun, with something weird and strange going in the background, but we'll get back to that later. Even the music, though, feels like it's from a 50s TV show, from all the instrumentals to the intro music. So this is going to be the first spoiler, but it is revealed that Catherine Hahn's character Agnes is actually the witch Agatha Harkness. Her reveal music is a straight up homage to the Munsters opening. Plus, it's an A1 banger that is on my running playlist, because it was Agatha all along. I'll be honest with you though, I spent a lot of time gushing here because I feel a personal connection with these 2 episodes. When I was younger, my mom loved Bewitched, and she had it playing all the time when I was a kid. And I never understood why until she told me Bewitched helped her learn English when she was younger. So she has a connection to this show that means a lot to her. And now we're in the groovy 70s.
And if I'm being totally honest with you, I am not well versed in 1970s comedies whatsoever.
So, unfortunately for me, this is the least interesting era of TV because I don't have a connection to it compared to the later and previous ones. So, I'll do my best to talk about it. But what I can say is you get that 70s vibe with the music and the aesthetic, from the opening soft mellow music to the start of the episode, to the later frantic instrumentals that were playing when things go amok. Again, we still have that laugh track playing when someone makes an awkward lame joke, and the practical effects are still here, and it's really cool. And the way they handle the magic, I can only imagine that they were thinking of what if Bee-Wish was in the 70s. From the on the head how the baby is coming, Wanda's magic creates a stork that follows her around. When she uses her magic, a giant red smoke cloud appears. It's very charming to me. Like I said, I'm sorry guys, I don't really have much to say about this era because I don't really know about it. I didn't really grow up with it.
Thank goodness it's Friday. This video probably did not come out on Friday. I am just referencing the era of TV we're going to be talking to next, which is in the mid 80s and early 90s.
Because it feels like it's taking from different family comedies like Family Ties, Full House, and Growing Pains. The 80s aesthetic is there with the synth music and that 80s fashion though. I mean, look at those leg warmers. Damn, Catherine Hahn. Oof. Now, Wanda and Vision have children, so it's now shifted from just hijinks of newlyweds, but now centered around a family dynamic. Wanda is trying to act like your typical TV mom. The episode's quote-unquote conflict, not the real plot of the episode. But the show within the show, it's complicated, is Wanda's kids want to keep a puppy and Wanda and Vision disagree about whether they should. But it ends with the dog dying and you have a deep moment of understanding and a life lesson in there. It's charming and fun. I know I keep saying that, but this is just a charming show. I'm sorry. The episode ends in the trope of the returning troubled sibling coming back into town with the return of Wanda's brother, while also jabbing at the joke of TV shows recasting characters mid-season like the original Darren from Bewitched or Aunt Viv from The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, no longer being Aaron Taylor Johnson as Quicksilver, but Evan Peters playing Quicksilver instead.
Now we're in the rad eras of the late 90s and early 2000s. This is my jam, my dudes. This is the era of what I would like to call the dysfunctional family comedies.
This episode is heavily inspired by Malcolm in the Middle. From the opening scene, very similar to it, to where Billy is breaking the fourth wall and talking with the audience about certain predicaments. Having Pietro playing that older troublemaker slacker brother figure to the kids. The early 2000s aesthetic is alive because of the central conflict of the story. Vision and Wanda are having a fight, so you see the dynamic between Wanda, her kids, and their uncle. Wanda and Pietro's dynamic is very 90s, early 2000s feels. There's always that character that is either a brother or a cousin of the main character, like in King of Queens and 8 Simple Rules, that's a lovable idiot but messes up but tries meaning well. It's the goofy antagonism but with love, as well as having your typical weird flashback events of the childhood these shows like to do. As well as this is the first time I'm going to bring up the commercials, I'll bring them up later, but the commercial feels very something I watched as a kid, with it being a Go-Gurt parody about Yo Magic.
So I'm gonna just be honest with you guys. I already kind of do the last era of comedy because I look at a camera and I think I make really funny jokes.
So we reached the final area of TV comedies, which is the mockumentaries. It's weird because the family dynamic, you would think would have a Modern Family kind of intro, but instead it's The Office, which...
I understood that reference.
But it doesn't feel right, you know what I mean? This is a little bit of a nitpick, I'll be real, because although The Office is kind of a dysfunctional family comedy, this is playing off more in the vein of Modern Family in my mind. But I digress, because honestly, compared to the other eras, this one feels kind of lazy. But I don't think it's in a bad way, because once we hit this era of TV and Wanda's bubble of reality, we realize what these eras actually were representing for Wanda herself, and that is her coming back into reality and dealing with her grief. Because when you look at all the eras and how Wanda starts intersecting with each one, you can kind of see the subtle changes, because the eras of TVs have evolved. In the 1950s, it was used for a sense of escapism with things like Leave It to Beaver and The Andy Griffith Show was a form of entertainment and showed the ideal perfect family life. Sure, there were little small problems, but nothing ever felt like it was going to change at all, and it just goes back to the status quo at the end of the day in each episode. You find out in the flashback that the 50 TV was used to help Wanda and her family learn English, but it felt like an escapism from the Civil War happening just outside her window. So it's a smart way to show it, because the farther we get into the history of TV comedies, they start to no longer show an ideal life. TV became more grounded and relatable to the problems because it's more realistic, especially when we reach the mockumentary stage where it's exactly what it means, a fake documentary. So the fact that the later parts start feeling lazier and less focused makes total sense because Wanda is realizing what's actually happening. Another way this show is showing you how Wanda is dealing with her grief and trauma is in the commercials. The commercials look and feel like generic commercials from those eras. The first 4 commercials are referencing huge things in Wanda's life that affected her. That being the death of her parents due to a StarTech industry bomb being represented by a toaster that's ticking, joining Hydra and Baron Strucker with the watch and the soap, and the Lagos incident with a commercial about Bounty paper rolls cleaning up big messes. While the last 2 commercials hint to what's going on with Wanda at the moment, to again letting you know we are coming back to reality. The Yo Magic commercial is talking about how Agatha is trying to drain Wanda's magic, and the Nexus Lunesta commercial is telling you that Wanda is a Nexus being that's able to control reality. But for me, something WandaVision really takes style and inspiration for the storytelling that I most enjoy is from the Twilight Zone. Because for the first 3 episodes until the climax of episode 3, you don't know what's happening, but you know there's something else going on beneath the facade of this TV show world. Just the slightest breaking of character makes you realize this world is fake, and there might be something sinister going on. Which is then shown to us in episode 4 when it's an entire episode outside of the weird bubble Wanda has created, and you understand small things that are actually going on. Small, subtle, weird things from the first 3 episodes start making sense, and it shifts the conflict of the real world because of Wanda's weird bubble and Wanda's fake life within the show. The style of it being a mystery box and slowly opening the true conflict is both a strong point and its weak point.
Because the devil's in the details. I was supposed to have a cool devil effect, but I ran out of budget.
Because the show always ends in a sort of cliffhanger, and so it makes the audience go buck wild with what's going to happen next, creating their own ideas of how the story is going to end. But hey, that's just a theory that was wrong. Suck it, MatPat. But because of the open-ended mystery format of the show and the internet rumors all around, it caused people to talk about the what-ifs of the show, and WandaVision was extremely popular because of this, but I also think that this is its biggest weakness. The payoff of the finale for a lot of people was a bit lackluster, that's me included, but for me it's for something different and I'll get to that later. But because while the show is going on, you have actors and the crew having to talk to late night show hosts and other interviewers in places like GQ and Esquire, the interviewers, like the audience, are watching as the show is happening and are asking the same internet questions, and so the people have to deflect those questions so not to spoil the show. Like, one of the big reveals is that Catherine Hahn ended up being Agatha Harkness, and the internet was happy, but then we have other things that were just hearsay, but had the internet pumped for it to happen. One of them being the reveal of Marvel's Satan Mephisto. The rumor has been there since the start of the production, and by the end of it, spoiler alert, no Mephisto, and I think this was a big letdown for a lot of people. But you can watch Peter Fonda play Mephisto in the best Marvel movie ever, Nicolas Cage's Ghost Rider. Fight me, nerds. But people would pause every frame at each episode, like, see, the toaster says 666, the fly's the devil. And I get wanting to know everything about the show, but damn dude, just enjoy it. They wanted Mephisto to control either Agatha or Wanda, but I think that would have ruined each of their characters and motives. It wouldn't work with the arc of Wanda's growth and understanding her powers. Another one being the reveal of Evan Peters playing Quicksilver. For this, it was a really cool nod because Peters played the character in the Fox X-Men series. Again, when the reveal wasn't the actual X-Men Quicksilver and just some guy named Ralph, it was a letdown for some. There are so many of these that I can bring up, but it seems like the biggest ones were these two. And then I see articles and posts about people being let down by the plot, not following how they felt it should go. But I think that's kind of dumb. I know they're opinion pieces, and this part is too for me, because I think the mystery elements are great because it keeps you wondering what's going to happen and it keeps you on your seat. But I don't think it's fair to judge media by the fact that your fan theory didn't happen. It's okay to be let down, but I don't think you should knock the show points for that. I think you should look at the criticisms of the show itself and not about these stupid Marvel what ifs. That's coming to Disney Plus sometime this year, so go over there and do that. At the end of the day, I adore this show, but I felt a little let down when the climax felt like every generic Marvel movie, with Wanda fighting a palette swap witch with the purple magic key blast instead of her red magic key blast. And for me, the ending felt a little rushed, but these don't overshadow how much I enjoyed this show and what it was about, which we watch how Wanda is dealing with her grief. She has dealt with a lot in her life, and having to watch everything she loves die in front of her, sometimes even twice, obviously that really got to her. At the start of the year, I was outlining a video called "The MCU is Dumb and That's Okay" because I had a lot of gripes about the MCU. I love a lot of these films, but they're all still very generic with a formula, and it didn't feel like they were growing. But then I watched this show, and the first 3 episodes show me that they could do something different and they could go weird. Honestly, I think these series might work better than the movies because it allows you to flesh out characters and give them more depth. By the end of it, I loved them bringing back Jimmy Woo and the subtle arc he had in Ant-Man with the card trick intro, as well as bringing Darcy back from Thor, who feels like she's actually grown since those films, as well as showing off classic Marvel costumes and not feeling forced, but also finally giving Wanda the reason to be called the Scarlet Witch. Disney and Marvel are doing something different, and it's never been done before. They're trying to create a connected universe of TV and film. Like, I know we had Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but that doesn't technically count, and those Netflix shows, RIP, I guess. But this is the start of a unique era of media, and WandaVision placed those seeds and has gotten me interested in the MCU media again. I think it's also nice we had a year after Endgame, thanks to the pandemic, that we didn't have an MCU film. I think this really helped that show in a way because I think people started to be starved for Marvel content.
I think the show was unique in its own thing for the most part, and I think the way they handled it well is because of the storytelling and how these weren't gimmicks for the TV shows. It was a way to show Wanda's psyche and her growing, and I think that is what makes this style have so much substance. Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you liked my videos, you should check out all my other videos. I talk a lot about different kind of medias as well as like Asians in media as well. Also, you can find me on Twitter where I make really bad hot takes and talk about some of the things I might be writing about next. As well as if you want to help support me, you can go support me down on Patreon. The link's down below. But just watching was really cool anyways. But I just want to end with keep on keeping on. And whatever you're going through, you've got this, cowboy. Pew pew.